Don't want anybody to say we started before 7, so.
5 seconds. 3, 2, and.
Good evening. Welcome to the December 11th Fairview Planning Commission meeting. If you'll join me for the opening prayer and pledge. Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move to approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Powers, Anderson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Citizens' comments? Thank you, ma'am. Approval of minutes from the November 13th, 2018 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Burks, Powers. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Old business, item 1, Western Woods subdivision phase 4, request for subdivision acceptance and reduction to a maintenance bond, lots 38 lots on 5.9 acres located along Wiley Circle, Spicer Court, and Colquitt Way, property zone RS5 PUD. Current letter of credit in the amount of $85,000 expires January 9, 2019. Mr. Jenkins, if you could read those staff comments for me, please.
Yes, sir. This item was initially discussed at the August 2018 meeting and deferred to every meeting since then. As previously discussed, all improvements have been installed by the developer per the approved plans, and the required as-built drawings were submitted. This subdivision is currently under a bond that will expire before the January meeting. Thus, should the Planning Commission not vote to move forward with subdivision acceptance at this time, the Planning Commission should recommend either renewing the bond at the current amount or reducing the bond.
Sir? Good evening, Mr. Cunningham.
Just requesting for the bond to be, or everything to be accepted in the subdivision like we did in August. I think all the things that we had talked about at that meeting, met with several of the homeowners here then and took care of those issues.
Did we make any additional progress with that property owner across the way? That was on our notes from last month. Did we get in contact with him at all? Any luck? Good. And then we had mentioned in the minutes last month about reaching out to the property owners that came to that meeting. Do we have any luck with that?
Like I said, that night after the meeting, I sat out there and took everybody's names, numbers, and their notes of what they wanted to do, and to my knowledge, everything was taken care of.
Sure.
And a lot of that wasn't pertaining to the subdivision, by the way. It was building related, and the builder took care of that.
Any additional questions for the applicant?
Make a motion that we accept the subdivision.
Burks, Anderson? Any additional discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Cunningham, thank you for your patience, and thank you for getting that stuff. You too. New business, item 2, recommendation to the Board of Commissioners on the acceptance of Fairview Station subdivision requested by Brandon Robertson and Huntley Gordon, 30 lots, property located along Tiger Trail and Marissa Way, R20 PUD zoning district. Mr. Jenkins, if you could read those comments for me.
All improvements have been installed by the developer and the required as-built drawings were submitted. Staff notes that the required 5-foot sidewalk was constructed as a 4-foot sidewalk. The developer requests a variance due to oversight during the construction process. Planning Commission may, at their discretion, approve the variance to allow the 4-foot sidewalk to remain as is and proceed with subdivision acceptance, or disapprove the variance and defer the item.
Sir? Could you state your name for me, please?
Yes, sir. Huntley Gordon.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I guess my biggest thing is I like the variances to be in front instead of the end after you've done something wrong or not done something you should have. I don't think a 4-foot sidewalk will meet ADA standards. And I think it, from an earlier conversation, thinks it would put the city at a certain liability risk if the sidewalks are not 5 foot. I don't know what the remedy is for, but was it on the plans that they're 5-foot sidewalks? I mean, on their plans, not our plans? So, in other words, they had a plan they didn't follow, had nothing to do with anything we did or didn't do.
Mr. Gordon, you have any comments on the sidewalks or how we got there?
The sidewalks were constructed, I wasn't on the construction site, however, they were constructed and to make matters further compounded, Williamson County Board of Education wanted to provide a sidewalk along their property to connect the neighborhood, and then they matched the sidewalk to their internal sidewalk there. So this is a unique situation. We've looked at coming back with pavers on 6 inches on either side. There's really no way to facilitate taking the sidewalk from 4 to 5 feet without removal.
Is it a 5-foot easement and then a 4-foot sidewalk right now?
I believe that is correct.
So you wouldn't be able to protrude into the 5, and then it wouldn't meet the 5 on the front? Do you know, and have an estimate of how long that Williamson County sidewalk that they added is?
No, sir, I do not. But I believe it starts at Tiger Trail and goes all the way to the internal school sidewalk is what I'm understanding, along the Tiger Trail.
So you're saying you only have a 5-foot easement right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shouldn't it have been caught at that time when somebody was looking at the plans for a 5-foot sidewalk? You would think someone would note that we need more than a 5-foot easement. So did they just not get enough in the easement and just said, the heck with it, we'll just go with a 4-foot?
From what I understand, the sidewalk was formed and poured as 4 foot, and then by the time it was realized, it was already backfilled, and that was not discovered. We're talking, the difference of 12 inches, and on a construction site that was as busy as that. I'm not sure as to why it was done, but someone initially made the mistake, and then it was followed throughout when the pour was made.
I think the easement is still a 10-foot right-of-way easement. The 5-foot is the strip of grass, and then 5 foot for the sidewalk. So they wouldn't be able to protrude towards the sidewalk, because then they wouldn't meet requirements of the 5 and 5. That's a.
Thank you for the clarification.
I believe the ADA requires 42 inches, if I am thinking correctly, but I know the minimum on an ADA door is 36, but I believe an ADA sidewalk is 42, but I'm not as well-versed in the code to speak authoritatively on that, but I believe it's 42.
That 42 for the residential, the building sidewalk as opposed to the public sidewalk, I think it would be two different standards.
I'm not claiming to be authority on that. I believe that 42 inches is the minimum.
I guess my question, in not listening correctly, I guess, is there is enough easement for them to tear it out and go back with a 5-foot as it should have been?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any additional questions or statements? I think the biggest thing for me is just setting, every decision we make here sets a precedent for future. And so, how many more people are gonna forget that it was supposed to be 5? It's just, or ask for that variance because we gave it somewhere else. I think it just scares me to set that precedent for the future.
I understand that, and this is a situation where we had, all the lots are now sold, and we are here maintaining, asking for you to accept the subdivision as it's built. We don't have any further ownership in the subdivision, and we came back, and the trees were initially missed in phase 1. We went back and installed trees, and they installed the incorrect trees, and we've gone back and completely removed the trees that were not installed correctly and put in the required trees and met the arborist approval with what we did go back and do on property we didn't own in an act of good faith. And we're asking for this accommodation and acceptance of the subdivision as it is.
But it would still be a public right-of-way that
Yes,
you
sir.
have an active bond on for improvements. So you still have access to make adjustments in that 10-foot area. Is that correct? So,
Yes, sir.
any additional questions?
I would just like to know for sure absolutely what ADA requirement is. Yeah, I'm trying to search their 2010 regs too right now.
I think, Mr. Collins, if you have some comment.
If you would like to defer this item or remove the motion, consider the other items you have before you. During that time, I'll step back, get you an answer, and you can bring that back up. So at this point, just whoever offered the motion, if they would consider
I don't think we-
withdrawing the motion, then that will give me some time to get you your answer.
I don't think we have a motion yet. We're just,
Well, never forget what I said.
that's good.
I'll be right back.
So if anyone would like to make a motion to defer this to the end of new business,
Make a motion to defer to the end of new business, please.
Second.
first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right.
All
I'll be back in a moment, too.
Thank you, sir. All right, item 3, bonds and letters of credit. Stable Acres subdivision, irrevocable standby letter of credit to cover the roads, sidewalks, and storm drainage, $65,000. Planning Commission set the bond in December 12, 2008. Bond expires January 6, 2019.
I'd make a motion to call the bond if it's not renewed by January 6, 2019.
Just one, or can I get a second for discussion?
Second.
Slaughter, second. Just one thing we had thought about considering is possibly asking for a 6-month or a shorter term to try and incentivize the completion, since it was originally set in 2008, and that neighborhood is probably 80% done at this time, getting close to finishing the lots. So I don't know if that's something we can entertain or has been done before, discuss, something to try and incentivize that developer to kind of wrap that one up instead of continuing to delay it. Is that a feasible thing? Is that something that happens, or, okay? Mr. Burks, you made the motion. What do you think about them?
I'd be fine with that amendment.
So a motion for an amendment to request a 6-month bond time in order to try and incentivize the developer to make the final completions. Is there a second on the amendment?
I will second on that amendment.
Bartley, have a second. So just point of order, do I need to vote on the amendment and then the motion as amended, or vote on motion with amendment? Perfect, okay. So we're voting on the motion as amended to set for 6 months. We have a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, guys. Item 4, Stable Acre subdivision, irrevocable standby letter of credit in the amount of $12,500 to cover lots 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, including sidewalks, fencing of detention pond, and installation of drainage ditch. Planning Commission set the bond to June 9th, 2015. Bond expires January 6, 2019.
So they've still got to complete sidewalks,
Yeah, you can keep
My
this in.
thought.
fencing, and install a drainage ditch.
Make a motion to call the bond, if not renewed by January 6, 2019, for a 6-month bond.
Move first,
Second it.
second. Any additional questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And just as a quick comment, the staff comment said developer has been contacted, is in his process of providing bond renewal, so just to make sure I read them in. So we're going back to new business. Acceptance of the Fairview Station subdivision requested by Brandon Robertson and Huntley Gordon, 30 lots, property located along Tiger Trail and Marissa Way, R20 PUD zoning district. Right on time. We're ready for you, sir.
The requirement, members of the board, is for any sidewalk that is less than 60 inches wide, there must be a landing or passing area. 48 inches would be in compliance, given the distance away from the street that we have now. The one caveat to that is for every sidewalk, or sidewalks that are less than 60 inches wide, you must have a landing or passing area every 200 feet. So that if someone's walking down the sidewalk or in a wheelchair, they can move over and have someone else who's on the sidewalk be accessible to that. So as a compromise for the widening of the sidewalk, I would suggest that we get with the developer and we have them install landing areas at a minimum of every 200 feet at a space that would be 5 feet by 5 feet, so that someone can move to the side, have the sidewalk be accessible. That would put us in ADA compliance if they were to do that thing. So my suggestion would be a landing area, minimum 5 foot by 5 foot, no further away than 200 feet distance from each other. That would relieve the necessity to widen the sidewalk, but it would put us in ADA compliance.
That would go on the grass median area towards the curb, right? And
Yeah,
that 5
yes,
feet.
sir. You can do that in either side. So if you wanted to widen it on either side of the sidewalk to accomplish that, you could.
So I just want to be clear. So it'd be a total of 5 by 5 area that size, not the sidewalk plus a 5 by 5.
Correct. If, to make it work where you want to do it, I would suggest do every 200 feet or less, depending on driveways and other such thing, and add a foot on either side so that you'd have space on either side for someone to walk. That would get you within ADA compliance and provide you for the landing area.
This may be beyond what you're familiar with, but could the driveways themselves be considered that portion?
They cannot be considered that portion because you run into the issue of the slope or degree of a driveway.
Yeah.
So the section of the sidewalk that crosses the driveway is a portion of the driveway. The driveway outside of that sidewalk is not a portion of that.
I was just trying to help out.
Right. Additionally, you'd be on private property if you were to get into the driveway, or you would be encouraging someone to stop a wheelchair or other thing in a driveway or drive area.
So perhaps we defer in efforts for the staff to try and find a resolution to come back with something that satisfies you guys.
I have a bit of an issue. And it goes along with what you were saying earlier, Mr. Chairman. If someone makes a mistake and says, hey, I know it was supposed to be this, my bad, will you give us a variance? If we do it this time, then the next time it happens, again, we've set that precedence that, well, you did it for this guy, why aren't you doing it for me? Maybe next time it's supposed to be a 5-foot sidewalk and it's 3.5 foot. Well, it's a matter of degrees, but we're setting that precedence, that that's what we do. We give you that variance, instead of saying, we're gonna hold you to the plan that you submitted to the city that we approved. And I don't necessarily wanna keep going down that hill. It's not just a slippery slope, it's a slippery hill. It can get worse and worse and worse. It's death by 1,000 cuts at some point. I know it seems silly, but that's my position.
I tend to agree with Mr. Burks, but the one thing, if it was to be, we was going to do these widening places, I wouldn't want a foot added to it. I would want the sidewalk taken out and it be a 5 by 5. I wouldn't want a little 1-foot sliver down the side, because as soon as the frost heaves that a few times, then that will not be a nice looking, I mean, if it's not continuous, those little 1-foot things, a little frost heave, and they're sticking 2 inches above the rest of the sidewalks. I just don't see how that would work. And as much as this gentleman here, he was the developer and everything, whoever built those is the person that was in wrong. They did not follow their instructions or their directions. And I can't, I've built several houses in my life, and I can't believe that if I made such a mistake that somebody wouldn't have me come back and correct it. And that's just, this is a pretty good sized mistake to me.
I can speak
Yes,
that
sir.
we would be willing to saw cut the sidewalks and put in a fresh pour of a 5 by 5 pad per your request.
My thing is that I'd rather you go back and build all the sidewalks to 5 foot. That's what your plan said.
Understand.
If the board decided to do the other, what I would want is that they not be an added on 1 little foot right
Correct.
there. I don't think that would be attractive long. I do not think it would hold up over time. And I mean, we've got sidewalks now that the state built that heaved and pushed, so a little 1 foot would be.
We had looked at going back and putting in another 1-foot pour, and don't believe that to be the best solution. And that's why we're asking for this discussion to occur. Another one, because the water infiltration along the 1 foot, we believe would create a problem with the maintenance of the sidewalk over time.
Seems to do it correct, it would be rip up the sidewalk and pour a 5-foot sidewalk. Not just a 1 foot, that strip that we know is not gonna hold up very well. It's not something I think the city wants to accept. So it's either we allow you to do a landing, we allow a variance, or you pull it all up and redo it the way it was supposed to have been done originally. And it's not on us, it's on whoever did the sidewalk and whoever approved it. So, I'm sorry that that's the situation, but that's what we
As
have.
are we.
Because the developer actually saved 20% on his concrete. Maybe. No, he did. I mean, if you took a foot off of a 5-foot thing, that's 20%.
So, is it, right now I'm making an assumption that you hired a company to come in and actually install the sidewalk.
It was not a cost-saving calculation
Yeah, it-
that occurred. It was a mistake in the forming of the sidewalk that continued with each house as it went down.
So the 3 or 4 guys or whoever it was supposed to be pouring the sidewalk just made a mistake. And then you're left holding the responsibility of the whole thing. I understand that. At the end of the day, they were supposed to provide a service to you, and they didn't do a good job at that. They did not provide the service that you hired them to do.
And the builder actually was responsible for the sidewalks for each lot as they developed. It wasn't like the sidewalk was all put in at one time by the developer.
Yeah.
This is a builder function within the development.
I'm of the opinion that you should be able to hold them accountable for not fulfilling their obligations to you. And I'm kind of the mind of Commissioner Burks and Mr. Power here that we also should probably hold you accountable to the same thing too. Not that it's your direct fault, you weren't out there laying the concrete, I understand that, but at the same time, it does fall on your responsibility. So I'm hoping that they can come around and help you out and fulfill their obligations without charging you like an arm and a leg to do so, because they screwed up, right?
Understand.
The other thing I'd point out is this was a PUD development. So in exchange for these certain items, we allowed you to do certain other things. We allowed you to have smaller lots versus a strict zoning. So, that's all part and parcel with it. In exchange for this, you had to follow these things. So I feel like we're not getting what the agreement was. So my position would be is I think we should hold you to it. And then, I know it's not your fault, you weren't doing it, but your name's on it at the end of the day, unfortunately.
Anyone like to make a motion? We have a first and a second. So the motion is to require the 5-foot sidewalks. The recommendation for acceptance, so would we, I guess want to make sure our motion captures, would be sending an acceptance recommendation to the board contingent on the 5-foot sidewalks. That'd be correct. Okay.
Is that a continuous 5-foot or at 1-foot strip?
Continuous.
Designed as
As per
intended,
plans
as
and
our-
specs,
yeah, as our-
original plans and specs.
as our neighborhood sub-rectory. You have a note, Mr. Collins?
Procedurally, on the BOC side, my suggestion would be not to leave it as contingent upon the sidewalks. My suggestion would be to deny this, request that they be installed, and once they're installed, if that's the privilege of this board, that have this go back for acceptance by the city council or the board of commissioners as installed completely and appropriately, would be my suggestion to the board.
So if you guys agree with that statement, who was the second? Were you the second? If you remove your second, and you remove your motion and restate.
Restate, it would be to go, what now? How to go back?
Be a motion to deny.
A motion to deny the request for the variance.
Second.
First, we have a second. Any additional discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Yes, sir.
All right, we will jump back down to reports for discussion and information. City planner, Ms. Costanza, mix those together.
At the January 8th meeting, there will be a vote for accepting the new format for the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations. And then also contained in your packet is a calendar of dates for 2019. You'll see that there's a little bit more spacing in between all of the various submittal dates, and you can look at it if you have any suggestions. It's just we have to have a new calendar in place since we're almost in 2019.
Will you vote on the calendar? We voted on it in January. I think we voted on it before. I don't know if it's required.
I don't know that you have to vote on it, but
No,
it's
that's perfect.
starting pretty soon.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Sir.
Could I ask you, Ms. Costanza, so the Planning Commission workshop column here is all these Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m. Is that something that we're expected to attend, or what's?
No, it's for staff
Okay,
only.
okay.
We usually have it on Tuesdays, but we moved it on Wednesday to accommodate some other departments being able to attend from now on.
That's cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All good? City engineer? No, not present. City attorney? Thank you, sir. Communication from the planning commission members. Slaughter.
Merry Christmas.
Walls?
Yep, Merry Christmas.
Mr. Anderson?
I'd like to say Merry Christmas and welcome Mr. Blake, Mayor Blake.
Mr. Powers? Mr. Talley?
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Commissioner Burks?
So I'd like to encourage anyone to come out that's available at our next meeting when we have the revised zoning ordinances and design review manual up for acceptance. Please come out, review it if you can, and let us know if you see anything that we've missed. You know, the more eyes, the better. Also, Mr. Blade, congratulations. I missed our first meeting last week, and I apologize for that. Good to have you here. And Merry Christmas.
Mayor Blade?
Thank you all for your very kind welcome, and I wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Mr. Jenkins?
Nothing tonight. Mele Kalikimaka. And Haole Makihika.
Merry Christmas to all. Welcome, Mayor Blade. Excited to have you. One question off of Mr. Burks. Will we post those ordinances that we're voting on the website soon so people could review them, could see them? Do we have that PDF version from Griggs?
I think we're waiting on I think he still needs to send us the revised section on the overlay, the PUD overlay requirements. But yeah, that should be something that we can easily post as links.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And that is all I have. Accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.